U.S. Department of Agriculture says farm program payments to crop producers enrolled in ARC and PLC for the 2016 crop year will add up to about $8 billion. ARC, Agriculture Risk Coverage, and PLC, Price Loss Coverage, are safety net programs that offer assistance with specific drops in revenues or commodity prices. Nebraska Extension Policy Specialist Brad Lubben joined us Wednesday to explain what Nebraska farmers can expect from those payments now and in the future.
We have seen those payments actually come out the door into producers' accounts. Payments were relatively similar to where they've been the last couple years. That is to say, prices have fallen far enough that ARC payments are big. PLC payment rates, particularly for wheat and grain sorghum, were substantial as well. And we have to the tune of somewhere around $650 million of payments to Nebraska producers on the 16 crop that just arrived in the bank this month.
One of the questions in the past has been, why is my payment so much less or so much more than my neighbors across the county line? Can you explain maybe what that variability could look like and why?
You know, we continue to see that variability across county lines, everywhere from $0 or near $0 payments to in excess of $80 or $90 payments per acre, per base acre. And we have to remember in the ARC formula, that agricultural risk coverage program at the county level, it's a county average yield, it's a national price in that formula. Everybody gets the same national price, but that whole ARC payment covers only a 10% band of revenue, which means if everybody has the same price, it only takes a 10% shift in yield relative to benchmark to go from no payment to maximum payment. And so it's not surprising that we see substantial variation across the county lines, but it is a substantial number in terms of payments.
For the state as a whole, can you explain where these numbers could be for 2016 and maybe how that compares to 17 as well?
Well, as we've seen, the 14, 15, and 16 crops, we saw substantial payments, in excess of $600 million in Nebraska. The 17 crop that we're hopefully harvesting now, although we're struggling there too, but the price levels are struggling. And we're at the point where ARC payments would continue to be paid out on the 17 crop at current price levels. Even for soybeans, we're at that point right now where any further drop could trigger ARC payments as well. But they won't be, by any calculation, as big as what we've seen in the first 3 years. In fact, if we do some projections based on current yield numbers, current price numbers, we might see in the neighborhood of $200 million, a $400 million cut from what we saw in the payments in the state this year. So some payments still coming on the 17 crop to be paid in 18, but very small compared to what we've seen.
Would you expect PLC to ramp up?
We expect PLC payment rates to be greater than ARC payment rates. Remember that there's limited base acreage enrolled in Nebraska in the PLC program. Very little of the corn and soybean base, about half of the wheat and grain sorghum base, just a smaller overall number. So out of that $200+ million payments that might come next year, a substantial chunk of that is PLC as opposed to ARC.
Take you back a few years to when farmers had to make this decision between ARC and PLC, and they sat in numerous meetings about which one could be better for them. Is this, now this many years out, is this sort of how you thought it would play out?
Well, we expected that ARC was front heavy. It was built on an average. That average started with relatively high prices, and as that average came down, we knew that the guarantee would fall and any payments would fall. PLC has become bigger because those price levels simply got a little bit lower and a little bit lower. If we had stayed at near $4 corn, for example, that we started looking at in 2014, then PLC wouldn't be very big either. But we've dropped to low $3 corn in terms of a national average forecast. And so PLC payments have gotten bigger, ARC's gotten smaller, PLC has gotten bigger, but most of the participation in Nebraska in ARC means that total payments have gotten smaller over the life of this bill.